Hi, my name is Dave. I'm your host. You're listening to The Last Podcast, where the first shall be last and the last shall be first. If this is your first time listening, welcome. I'm happy you found me. And if you're returning, welcome back. I really appreciate you listening, and I hope you continue to find tips, ideas, and value from listening to this podcast. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you had an encounter with someone that kind of left you feeling frustrated, misunderstood, or even hurt? You know, I know most of us don't wake up in the morning and say, I can't wait to have a real tough conversation today. I know we don't, right? We avoid them because it makes us anxious and they sting, and sometimes they challenge our very peace. Difficult encounters are not like punishments. I believe they're like teachers, right? They're like the teacher in the classroom. We often label a tough interaction as bad or toxic, but what if they're actually opportunities in disguise? I know you're probably saying, where's David going with this? But every person we meet acts as a mirror, showing us something about ourselves that we might not otherwise see. When someone frustrates us, maybe it's time that we might take a look at the mirror, and it might be highlighting where we may need to show a little more patience. Or when someone criticizes us unfairly, it might be showing us how attached we are at trying to be right. Or even when someone disappoints us, that's a great opportunity, right? It teaches us about our boundaries, expectations, or even forgiveness. So when people be asking themselves, why does this happen to me? I think the better question is, what is this trying to teach me? I think that shift right there can turn things around all by itself. I believe that's where growth happens. In those little shifts, in those questions that we can ask ourselves. When we shift from being defensive to being curious. Because defensiveness closes the doors to learning. Curiosity opens it wide. When you feel that rise of irritation, when your heart starts beating faster and your mind says, here we go again, pause right then and there and ask yourself, what part of me is being triggered? And then ask, what can I learn from this in this moment? Is this about them, or is this something inside of me that needs healing or awareness? This is powerful. It works. You got to try it, but you got to put it in practice to see its power. So I think when you think about encounters and you think about our conversations that we have, I think every difficult interaction can serve one or three purposes. Revelation. Why? It's showing something new about ourselves or about the other person. Refinement. Helping you strengthen a character trait like patience or compassion. That's huge. And then the last one, I would say redirection. It pretty much like it points us, or it might point you to a new way of responding or relating, or even looking at a situation through a different lens or from a different perspective. Sometimes the lesson is about communication. Sometimes it's about boundaries. And oftentimes it's simply learning to stay calm and grounded in your truth, even when others don't understand you. Yep. When you begin to see each encounter through that kind of lens, from that different perspective, you'll stop wasting your energy. And guess what? You'll also invest in your own growth. You know what's really amazing? When you change your perspective, you change your experience. The same conversation that once made you angry can now make you more aware. The same person who used to irritate you can now help you evolve. It doesn't mean that you have to enjoy the conflict or tolerate poor behavior. No, but you're still growing in that instance. It means that you use that moment for your own transformation, instead of letting it drain your strength, energy, and peace. Well, what do you think? Have you ever gone through something like that? Do you think that this can help you? Because I think pain is not always punishment. It's not always the bad thing. It's sometimes the preparation that we must go through. So the next time you find yourself in a difficult conversation, pause before reacting. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what am I supposed to learn from this? And then listen. And you know what? That may take some practice, especially for you hotheads. I know it took a lot of practice for me because I was a hothead, but I think your growth is often hidden inside the very encounters we try to avoid. So I think this is worth you practicing. If you learn to approach difficult people and moments with openness and curiosity instead of fear and resistance, you won't just survive them, you'll be transformed by them. So think about that. And I want you to try something. I've done this, so I'm only talking from experience. I want you to take, at the end of the day, I want you to take 5 minutes in your day, right at the end. And I want you to ask yourself some questions. The first question I want you to ask yourself, who challenged me today? So after you write your answer to who challenged me today, think about this. How did I respond to that challenge? And then I want you to say to yourself, what emotions did that challenge bring up in me? And then finally, what lessons might this encounter be trying to teach me? You'll start noticing patterns. And from those patterns, guess what? Comes wisdom. I'm telling you right now because I've gone through all these. And it's helped me a great deal. So even when you're dealing with like tension and you're dealing with tension while you're talking to somebody and you're in that conversation, pause, take a few minutes, take a slow breath, ask internally, what is really happening here? And then choose curiosity over reaction. You'll find that simple pause can change the entire outcome of that moment. And then, sometimes you may have to reframe the story after a hard encounter. Instead of replaying what went wrong in your head, instead of saying they disrespected me, say they gave me an opportunity to practice grace. That's powerful. I'm going to say that again. Instead of saying they disrespected me, they gave me an opportunity to practice grace. And you can even add patience in that. Instead of, that was a waste of time. I mean, we've all said it at one point in time in our lives. Instead of saying that was a waste of time, that was a moment of self-discovery. Because if you look at things in a different lens, and what was a waste of time, in your opinion, what could have you learned in that waste of time, in that moment or in that period? What was it trying to shape you? Words shape your perception, and the perception shapes your power. So if you think about that, how could you use words to change your own perception in your own conversation, in your own interactions? And before I go, I have to say this because I learned this so long ago, and especially in sales, having empathy. Listening to what they're really trying to express beneath the words, and sort of like read between the lines. Ask a curious question instead of making a defensive statement. And you can even do something like this. That's interesting. Can you tell me more about what made you feel that way? Because now it softens the blow. It diffuses tension and invites a connection instead of conflict. I want you to think about that because I remember working support on the phone. This is basically what we used to do. We used to have empathy. I understand. If I was in your shoes, I would probably feel the same way. Mrs. Jones, I like to help you resolve this. Can I take a few moments and hear more about how this might be bothering you or how this might not work for you? And maybe I can see if there's something I can do to make matters a whole lot better that will work for you. Can we do this together? Now it's diffused because I've taken the time, I've listened to her griping, I listened to what was wrong, and then I had to look for solutions while she's trying to explain to me everything that's happening. I'm taking it all in. And sometimes, in some cases or instances, we would type out what they're saying. And then we show them by repeating in our own words what they said. So we make sure that we were listening. We're proving to them that we're listening. We understand. And I want to help you. I want to take the time. And here's what I believe I can do. Will this work for you? And bang, the whole situation has been diffused. So empathy is powerful. So, and then you think about with empathy, I would just say you got to have a little gratitude. And each week, I want you to write 3 difficult encounters and write about the encounters that actually taught you something valuable. I mean, you can't go a whole week and not learn anything. So by you writing this stuff out at the end of the week and at the end of the day, and you curate all that information, I'm telling you, it's going to make you a more powerful person. You know, growth doesn't always come wrapped in comfort. I want to say that. It's pretty much disguised in conflict. And in my final thought, the next time you find yourself face to face with someone difficult, remember this. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. And every encounter, even the hardest ones, are simply the universe's way of saying, here's your next opportunity to grow. Here's your next opportunity to learn. Here's your next opportunity to refine who you are and move forward. Hey, my name is Dave. You're listening to The Last Podcast. Do me a favor. Go ahead and subscribe and go ahead and like this podcast. I appreciate you listening, and I thank you so much and wish you a fantastic week. Be blessed. So long.